Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the session on cross-border investment and market entry. We are representatives of the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance. Today, we'd like to talk to you about, from the perspective of angel investors, give you some advice as both founders, how you can seek investment from angels from countries other than your own, and what benefits they can bring to your scaling and your growth as a startup and entry and ease your entry into new markets, but also talk to any founders that are listening to explain to you why you should look outside your home markets, why you should treat the ASEAN as your home rather than simply the Philippines or Malaysia or Singapore. And the members who I'll introduce shortly, we're with the, if you could bring the slides up, please. We're with the ASEAN Angel Alliance. So it's a peak body for angel investing in the ASEAN. I'll very briefly run through. We have members from Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, Philippines, and Malaysia. And the mission is obviously we want to grow the angel investment industry in the ASEAN region. We want to share deals, best practice, and build relationships, particularly around cross-border investing. We do a number of things, which you can see on the screen there, but essentially it builds down to reinforcing that mission that we have. We're joined by a fantastic panel this afternoon, and I'd like to call on them each in turn. And when you come in, panel, please spend a minute. I'd like you to introduce yourself, tell about some of your experience for the audience, particularly around what cross-border experience you may have. And I should introduce myself to start with, but my name is James Lett. I'm a member of the Minnow Angel Investors Network. I was previously the executive director until just recently, where Quembi Go has come on to grow our organisation now that we've passed 100 members. And we've done, the last 12 months, we did 15 investments in the Philippines. So firstly, I'd like to call on Zelia Tong. So Zelia, welcome. You're on mute, sorry, Zelia.
So sorry about that.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, this is Celia. I'm actually from the Malaysian Business Angels Network. We are the national association representing angel investment in Malaysia. I'm also part of the council in MBAN. I'm serving as a newly minted treasurer for MBAN, which we just concluded our AGM last week. We have a total of about 300 angels that are accredited by us. And we facilitate a lot of angel investments activities from deal flow and all the way to even education. So that's from me.
Thanks, Celia. Next, I'd like to call on Dr. Rex Yap, who's with BATSI in Singapore.
Yes, hi. Afternoon, everyone. So I have a short slides to summarize my background. Okay, so my background is largely Infocom technologies since the 80s until the present. So BATSI was incorporated in Singapore, so from 2001 until today. And then I only joined BATSI in 2005, and then joined the board in 2009 until now. And sometime in 2016 was where it's largely a game changer for us, because we actually started our Angel Fund 1 to invest in the various early stage companies in Singapore as well as in the region. And then subsequently, we used up our fund by end 2018. Then that's where we launched our BATSI Fund 2. And currently, we are halfway mark. And then we are part of the founding members in the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance. And I only came on board this year, and very happy to get to know all of you. Then my investment portfolio covers about 80 to 85% Singapore-based companies, and then the rest are around the region: Malaysia, Australia, South Africa, Bangladesh, all the way to US. Yep, that's much about myself. Thank you, James.
Thanks, Dr. Rex. And next, we've got a representative from Thailand with Robert Lomnitz. Robert.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sawadee Kap from Bangkok. My name's Robert Lomnitz. I'm representing the Bangkok Venture Club, which is one of the largest angel groups here in Thailand. And as a day job, I run a venture capital and venture studio business, which invests in innovative businesses across the region. Nice to be here
Thanks.
this afternoon, James.
It's fantastic to have you. Thanks for joining us, Robert. And next from Vietnam, we have Madam Phi Van Nguyen. Madam.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Phi Van, and I'm the chairwoman of Vietnam Angel Network, which is part of the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance Network. So we have 25 members with portfolios anywhere from 10 to 25 companies each. We're very new to the game, but we're very active at the moment. I myself am an angel investor with 24 companies, and half of my portfolio are overseas.
Fantastic. And the last member of our panel is Samuel Jean Blanc. Sam.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Samuel Jean Blanc. I am part of two angel groups, one in the Philippines, which is Maine, and the other one, which is XA Network, based in Singapore, but investing across Southeast Asia. I've invested in a dozen companies so far across 5 different markets: Singapore, Vietnam, Indonesia, of course, the Philippines, and the US.
Thanks, Sam. And if I could get everyone on the screen, please. The first thing I'd like to talk about, and please, I'd like this, I'm going to ask everyone questions, but if you'd like to jump in, add something, add a point to what's been raised, please don't hold back. If you'd like to ask anyone on the panels your own questions, please do. We'll try and have a discussion. But firstly, I'd like to set the scene and firstly ask, to start with, we'll ask Sam, why do you think an angel should invest across borders? As an investor, what's the biggest benefits to you? Why do you do it?
Yeah, a great question, James. And I think I would summarize it in 2 parts. The first one, of course, is diversification. As an angel, you want to invest where your expertise is, but you don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. So investing across multiple markets means that if a market is going through some troubled times, it's great to have investments elsewhere. The second reason is, if you have a specific industry expertise, let's say the ride-hailing sector really, really well, then that expertise can be spread across multiple markets. And it's not because you are initially based in, let's say, Singapore or Indonesia, that you cannot share that expertise with startups being built elsewhere. So typically, if you've invested in a company, let's say in the food delivery industry in the Philippines, food delivery startups in Vietnam can also benefit from that expertise and from the experience you've acquired working with such companies.
Thanks, Sam. And Robert, you're in Bangkok. I know that you also have angels from across the globe, also in America, but you are investing across the region, both as an angel and as a venture capital with your fund. Why do you do it?
Well, I think Sam hit a number of the key issues. I would go a little bit further and say a couple of other things. Other than Indonesia, I think most of the markets we're talking about are relatively small. And if you really want to invest in something meaningful in terms of market size, you're probably talking about a business that ultimately needs to be successful regionally in any event, right? So whether it starts in Singapore and ends up in Vietnam and Malaysia and Thailand, or whether it starts in Thailand, etc., ultimately most of the really successful businesses have a regional presence, right? So I think sometimes being able to invest in a company outside your core market with an understanding that maybe you can help bring it into that core market is another aspect of interest for this regional approach. And then the other thing I would say is that if you think about the region and the pre-COVID ability to move, between the ASEAN states relatively quickly, I don't see any prohibition on being able to add value as an angel to businesses that are located across this region, because they're fairly easy to get to. A lot of the A lot of the angel support can also be provided remotely through technology. And because in most cases English tends to be a common language of business, there isn't really a barrier to being able to invest regionally.
Good points. What I'd like to know, I'd like to paint these benefits in some more concrete terms, and you've all got a wealth of experience, but I'd like to explore an example. And I know that Dr. Rex, you have a number of experiences, both positive and negative, but if you could quickly run us through a couple that you think would help the audience the most.
Okay, sure. So slides, please. Okay.
I've never had a student like you. You break properly. You change gears smoothly. Pure and skill. It's amazing. You would be a perfect Formula One driver.
Okay, so this is an advertisement from a local radio show. Only hear the good stuff. So we'll share two sad story first, then followed by a good story. So essentially, these are companies that we invested through our funds. So the first two company was invested in the overseas. I will not name the country. So the first company, the SFSB. So essentially, we invested in them through the recommendation of one of the investment committee member for one of the fund, the first fund actually. And I think the reason why it fails, so on hindsight, it was through a backdoor referral by the investment committee member, and bypassing actually some of the processes that we put in place, right? Then the second company is slightly away from Singapore. It's a medtech company, and then it's quite far away. And this is a referral from one of the existing Bansi angel. And then, unfortunately for us, we proposed, or we went in two tranches. So when they received the first tranche, and then we actually have some criteria for them to meet. And then when they did not meet the first criteria, so essentially we did not put in the second tranche. So in that way, you just lost 50%. And then also the champion for this deal was a new champion. So it's, in a way, it's untested champion. Okay, then for the good will be for our second fund, we invested in another company, and this company is based in, it's quite far away, South Africa, right? South Africa, yes. So, and this company went through a pretty robust due diligence process. And then the champion is also a proven champion, one of the Bansi Angels who have referred us deals in the past before. And I guess it also helps that the company is already generating revenue. So even though we went in with a slightly higher, above average valuation, but their valuation, the premium that we gave them was in a way justified by the uh, performance that they have achieved to date. So, and then since our investment until now, we have gained 2x. Yep, that's much for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. I think we'll explore some of these points in more detail, but the keys are, doing your due diligence, but you need that local connections, you need that local source who's a proven champion that can help you. And that's what groups like ours at the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance, with our network through the ASEAN and the number of deals we all see each year, that's a key value we can add. And encourage investors to reach out to us if they'd like to explore that further. But
Yes.
we've talked about the benefits for investors. What about founders? Madam Fee, what value do you think an angel investor brings to startups from other countries?
Thanks, James. I think every startup should be a regional or a global startup from day one. With that particular vision. So when I invest, I look at company that can scale. You know, at the beginning of a startup, you have a few kids getting together in a garage somewhere, doing all the codes and stuff like that. But that's never enough to scale a business. A business is a business. It's not just a product or a platform or a technical gig. So I think personally, because I've been working internationally for listed companies in the past. So I think there's a lot of scaling knowledge in management, network, opening new markets, experiences and learnings to adapt to different markets when they expand. And those to me are valuable. The most valuable probably, apart from talking about money, seed money is little, but you know, all these background knowledge and capability of an angel investor can add value in a huge way to startups.
Thanks, Fee. Sam, you're with a few groups, but with the Zougalas in Singapore, you see mainly cross-border deals. What do you think? What's the value you bring personally, and the groups that you're with? What do you bring to the founders that approach you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the answer depends on, you know, what is the investment philosophy of yourself or your group as an angel. I think too many angels don't provide much value. They, of course, they provide immense capital risk because they invest early and there's no guarantee on their return. But in many cases, they don't provide anything else, and I think that's where things need to change a little bit. But if you believe in providing a lot of support to the startups you invest in, then there are many ways you can help, although the startup may be located somewhere else. The first thing you can do is provide an objective view on their business. Often when you're in the market, you have some kind of bias because you either know the founder or know other investors, or you're so deep in the market that you're investing in that you actually don't see the bigger picture, or you don't see some of the weaknesses that could exist. So providing that objective point of view, I think, is critical. The second thing is what I mentioned earlier, which is bringing that expertise from other markets to new markets. And I think having experience on a specific industry is key. So again, food delivery, you've invested in one, let's say in the Philippines, it's worked immensely. Then you can bring that expertise to, let's say, Vietnam, and advise them on how things have been done and how things were successful in the Philippines. The last thing I would add is if you're, let's say, from a sector like tech, which I'm in, tech is global. So having an expertise on a certain type of a go-to-market strategy, being leveraging ads or leveraging a certain technology or leveraging cloud capabilities, for example, those are global platforms. And so whether you're advising a startup in the Maldives or in South Africa or in Singapore, they're all going to build their platform on some kind of cloud technology, for example. And so that knowledge that you have will be useful across the world. And I think that's where you can add most value.
And if anyone would like to jump in, please don't wait for me to call for you. But
yeah,
one of the
sorry, James, if I may sort of add in terms of, because I'm also part of an accelerator here in Malaysia, and we work very closely with a lot of companies that have actually raised from angels, and we also have some of the companies which are currently raising their pre-series A and series A, but they are still looking at trying to get strategic angels to basically come in and help them. And one of the key reasons I would like to add on to Sam is that besides the fact that some of these angels are bringing in capital, which is not necessarily the most key thing to the founders, but founders want angels to come in where they can then open up commercial opportunities for them. Say, for instance, I do have a portfolio company right now in the midst of closing a round, and there is a small part of that round which he would like to sort of bring in strategic angels, although the bigger round has actually been taken up by a very big institutional VC. Is that he said, I want to do that because, say, I want to go into the Philippines market. And this particular angel will be able to help me with their commercial network, also assisting me in terms of, going about, in terms of the Philippines market, getting to know the regulators, because it's in a space where there is regulation that he needs to sort of comply with. So from a founder's perspective, I think angels bring a lot of value, because they know the country's background, they know the workarounds between, among the ecosystem itself, both on the regulation side as well as even fundraising. So if they were to raise the next round of funds from that particular country, they can sort of do reference check with the angels that they currently have on their cap table. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to sort of add on.
No, that key thing, it's
James,
about that strategic value. Robert.
Yes, maybe, again, I think both Sam and Celia raised some points which maybe let's turn around and look at it from the founder's point of view. One of the things that I think is really good when approaching an angel is sort of understanding these various dynamics, all right? Sam mentioned a number of angels don't really provide enough assistance, all right? So I think when you're a founder, you should be asking angels, how much time are you going to spend on my business? Where do you see the value that you can add? And I also love founders who already know what they want from me, right? Do they want the type of go-to-market advice Sam is talking about, channel strategy, resellers, pricing assistance? Do they want financial help in going to a next round of larger VCs? Do they want direct operational help in terms of introduction of clients? The more that you understand the relationship between you and your angels, and the more you understand what they're prepared to provide and what resources they can bring to the table, the easier it is for you to construct a type of relationship that's truly value additive. It's not just a one-way street where the angel's telling you what they want you to do with your business. You really need to ask the angel what you expect of them as well.
There's a lot of head nodding going on, Robert. Why doesn't it happen more often? Zelia, you mentioned that that fund, or the raise that you're helping with at the moment, they're looking for a strategic cross-border angel, but why is it so hard to find? Why do you think it's not happening as much as it should be?
I think a lot of the effort, I would say probably we sort of play a role as well, as part of the National Association for Angel Investments. We are very much concentrated in sort of spurring the angel activities in Malaysia. Hence why then we sort of got everybody together to form the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance, is so that we can then create that pool of resource in terms of potential angels that any of our startups can actually tap into and reach out to. I think it's the lack of one sort of platform. It's not like there is an angel list for Malaysia. And many of the founders here, they are purely, a lot of the tech founders here, they are very much just closed ecosystem within their sort of founders network, but sort of reaching out to investors. That's where they need quite a lot of help. And that's where they come to people like us from the accelerator, they come to people like us from the Malaysian Business Angels Network, in order for us to sort of connect them to the right angels from Malaysia, as well as from different countries within ASEAN itself. It's like a reference check. And we do see it happening a little bit more these days, and I hope to see a little bit more structured things to come by with the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance as we actually increase in terms of the activities that we do.
Yeah. Personally and individually, I would not invest into a startup in another country, which I don't have time to spend with them. Don't have time to actually sit down with them face to face and go through meetings and brainstorming sessions and stuff like that. I like to spend a lot of time with my startups because I think money is never enough. You need to actually be involved. And that's the painful part of being an angel investor, is to be involved. And sometimes you're involved too much. So to me, I can't invest by myself into a startup in another country. I really need a co-investor, a local person that I can trust and work with, and share the investment, and vice versa. I would like to also invite people from other countries and markets to invest into Vietnam together. So I think co-investment is a must. But then to be able to do that, you need to build trust in relationships, and trust takes time, and relationships take time.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Dr. Rex, we've talked about the need and it's key that you need the local connections. So as an investor, and I wanted to invest in, say, Singapore, what's the best way to go about it? How should an angel investor find deal flow in other countries?
Deal flow in other countries. So we are using a platform called Hatcher Plus, and there are a number of such online platforms which curate deals from around the region. So I guess that is one possibility. And then for now, I think the best is that since we have the ABAA, the best will be to tap on this network, right? So if let's say I am interested to venture into Vietnam, then I think it will make sense for me to reach out to angels that are representing the Vietnamese angel network, and then from there to see what might be the common deals that we can invest together, rather than I start from scratch and invest in solo, which I think will naturally increase the risk. Yep.
I think, yeah, and also reach out, obviously, if you're an investor, start with our group, the ASEAN Angel Business Alliance. So contact us. We have a website. We can then put you in touch with the local angel group that can help you with your process and bring on that local validation that you may be seeking before you invest into a local startup. But we've talked about the need and how to find the deal flow. But so, Robert, what do you think the hurdles are? What do investors need to be aware of when they're making investments into other countries? Are there any risk mitigation strategies they should do? Are there some legal, financial? What aspects should you be considering?
Yes, I mean, look, I think the best way to obviate the risks are, as Dr. Rex says, to co-invest with local investors who are like-minded, whether they're individual angels or other groups or maybe even small VCs or accelerators. Definitely co-investing with locals is key. All right, because ASEAN, rather like Western Europe before the EU. It really isn't one market, even though we love to think about it as a regional market. There are language differences, there are cultural differences, there are regulatory and legal differences, that it's just impossible for one angel with a particular narrow set of experiences to know about. All right. So, and particularly in things like early stage innovation driven enterprises, the approach of the different ASEAN governments is very different. Is there sandbox regime? Is there not a sandbox regime? So I think there are a lot of legal, regulatory, cultural differences, and it's good to have local people who can give you insight into those when you're investing in a new market. And the more skin they have in the game alongside yours, the better it is in terms of taking that advice.
Are there, Madam Fee, are there any particular structures that founders should look at to make themselves more attractive to cross-border investments? I mean, is every country, do they treat safes the same way? Should they be incorporating in a particular country? What do you think?
I think at the early stage, incorporation in any country is okay, but obviously I work a lot with VCs in the collaboration way, as in, okay, if you invest, we co-invest, or we are going to wait for your startup to grow up and then invest. That's sort of collaboration that we have previously with VCs as an angel. So I think at an angel round, local incorporation is no problem. But normally when it comes to VC, they normally wants to take the startups to a more transparent and easy to do business sort of environment. So I have seen a lot of and a lot of my portfolios as well have been moved to Singapore. So congratulations, Dr. Yip, for Singapore being the hub of incorporation for a lot of startups, especially when they get investment from VCs, because obviously local legal complications and also local laws or policies can hinder the growth of a regional or international sort of oriented startup.
Does a general question for everyone, but is a safe mechanism, for instance, is that typically used in everyone's countries here? Yeah, please.
So I'm just looking for my portfolio of companies over the recent 1 year because of the pandemic and all. Many of the startups were also sort of affected. We do see them sort of trying to sort of pick up in terms of the businesses. And because of that, we have actually seen an increase in the sort of recommendation for the usage of SAFE. One of my company I've just recently raised a SAFE round of $3.1 million US. They are in the agri-tech business. And to them, that would be sort of like the most, sort of say, likely instruments that would be good for them to adopt at this point in time, because as business picks up, then the valuation will be different. At this point in time, they can't take in the valuation that the investors would like to offer because they were affected by the pandemic. And as things and the market sort of open up and they do have contracts that are all coming in, and to basically negotiate with VCs and as well as other investors, they would rather do a SAFE round where it will be predetermined in terms of like in the next stage of the fundraising. So we are seeing a lot of founders who are actually looking at the SAFE round to raise right now.
It's good to hear.
And James, here's an example of where the local environment differs. In Thailand, if you have a Thai company, a Thai limited company, a SAFE note is not even recognized as a proper legal agreement, all right? Nor are preference shares or convertibles or all sorts of instruments that are well recognized in other jurisdictions. So this is one of the reasons why you see a lot of Thai startups with Singapore holding companies, with board of investment exempted subsidiaries. All right. So it really does come down to the local rules as to whether some of these more esoteric instruments are even permitted or not.
Yeah. That's why I was curious to ask, because I had heard that there can be different treatments. So it's interesting to hear what the Thai experience. We've talked, a lot about the investment, but from a founder's point of view, what the key thing I've been hearing is about strategic value that angels can bring. So Sam, when we're particularly talking about market entry, how do you think an angel investor can add value there? How can an angel help a startup to enter a new market?
So if we go back to how angels can help in general, I think sometimes angels are, so first, a lot of them don't want to help and they are silent money, and that's also okay. Some founders are very happy to have the cash and then work on their company without any help or interference. And that's the whole thesis of funds like Tiger Global. But if an angel does want to help, sometimes it's in the wrong way. So asking constant information, asking for monthly reports, constantly nagging the startup for things that will divert its attention from its core mission. I think that's something we definitely need to avoid. However, how we can help as angels most of the time is through introductions. So introducing founders to great people that can help with partnerships, that can help with insights. Shelia mentioned the super important piece, which is helping with commercial deals. Most startups don't need advice on their product side because they speak with their users and they're building something that they know they know what they need to build, but where they need help is growing sales. And that's something that I think angels should deep dive most on, which is how can you facilitate deals? How can you help with partnerships? How can you help drive sales? So if we take that thesis, we apply it to cross-border investing. If you're helping a startup penetrate a new market, that's exactly what you should do. Open up your network and help them on the commercial side. I think these are the two key ones. Of course, insights would be the third one, but insights can come from you, but can come also from your network. Hence, point number one, which is opening up your network to your companies. And sometimes it needs to be reactive, so the startup reaches out and says, "Hey, can you help?" But I think we forget the importance of proactivity. But proactivity, not saying, "Hey, I can introduce you to those," and if the startup says, "Well, I'm not interested," then you're upset. You should proactively suggest things that you can help with, and the startup will be the one picking what has most value for them. And sometimes we forget. We think that, "Hey, I can introduce you to this great friend that I have based in Bangkok," and the startup says, "Well, thank you, but we're not interested right now." And as an angel, you become all upset because you think the startup is not maximizing, but maybe they're just doing other things that have more value than speaking with that person you want to introduce. So keep staying humble and keeping in mind, but that the startup probably knows what's best for them as well at some point.
You're nodding your head, Robert.
Yeah, I think there is, by virtue of the nature of the beast. I mean, if you think about the nature of an angel investor, they're usually successful people who know a specific industry, all right? So Sam is actually absolutely right. There is this incredible temptation for angels to change the startup and invest in the business they want to see rather than the business that's actually being presented to them by the founders, or trying to micromanage or trying to take over. And I think the approach that's suggested, which is really opening up your network and your resources and then letting the startup decide where it needs to focus, is a very good way to engage with founders,
And Zelia, Malaysia's very active. Of all the countries, they're the most common in terms of market entry and helping their startups enter into other markets. And I think my understanding is you had some involvement in that in a previous role. I mean, how does Malaysia do it that you think could add value to what other countries are doing?
Yeah, I just would sort of echo, yes, we have been doing a lot both from the public side of things in terms of helping our startups to basically break into the other countries within the region. And on the private side of things, a lot of things happen because of, say, angel clubs. Some of the angel clubs which are really very active here in Malaysia includes where Alan, the chairman or the president of MBAN, sits. Like his angel club is really very active, connecting startups to, say, Bangkok, to Vietnam and to Singapore. And also on the private sector side, most of the activities to basically connect their companies to other countries are all driven by the angel clubs themselves. Public side, you have the agencies which are doing it. That's a little bit more structured.
Thanks, Celia. Let's go back to Dr. Rex. We asked about what do founders should they do? How should they prepare themselves before they seek out cross-border investment? Any advice?
From the founder's perspective, one of the gaps I found that typically from founders, not just looking for opportunity within the country, but also cross-border, is actually for them to consider partnership opportunities, right? So to see what is it that, which are the companies in the other country or even within their own country that they can partner with to expand their services. So that is one of the gaps that I found.
So, Madam Fee, one of the earlier questions you talked about, the need for trust and building that connection relationships. I mean, how can founders do that? I know that one of the ways that the world has changed is that people are much more comfortable with doing due diligence through Zoom and other platforms. But how do you build that trust and that relationship as a founder with investors?
James, I I don't know if I'm getting old or the word is still the word of business is still revolving around building trust and relationships. Actually, I do pitches through Zoom, so I do listen to founders pitching online, but I never do DD online. So as I said before, I only co-invest or I invest together with a group in a local ecosystem, or I would really I'm really happy if we can do a syndicate fund at the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance Network, so that we can invest together with local presence and local experts. And I really rely on my local co-investor to do due diligence locally, to have face-to-face meeting, to actually go to their company, because there are a lot of stories behind all these gorgeous pitches that you can see. And if you only do this on screen, you really don't understand what's going on. So I don't believe in DD online. I believe in real life relationship and trusted partners.
So would your advice be that to seek out local angels and have those angels reach out between angel networks?
Yes, I only co-invest in new markets or through syndicate fund or local groups.
I mean, you raised a very interesting point there. Does anyone else here like to share an experience? Are they comfortable doing online, or do they also, people also obviously like to meet face to face?
Yeah, I think online is fine, but Miss Fee is putting the finger on something correct, which is you have two options. You either do extremely deep due diligence alone, but that will take a lot of time, and you need to pour in that work, or you invest and you shorten the due diligence, but you have someone else that can vouch for the startup or someone that you trust that you will co-invest in. So I think these are the two potential routes. I have no problem doing online due diligence. Actually, some of my best investments I've never met face to face before investing. I only met them afterwards. But yeah, depends on how much you trust the people you're going to co-invest with, or depends on how much work you're putting into the due diligence yourself. I know of investors that spend days analyzing startups and then choose the ones that they think are the most relevant. And these guys tend to be quite successful, and they do a lot of things online only.
From Singapore side, we do quite a lot of online due diligence, and especially for good deals that are far away from Singapore. As we know, Singapore is a little red dot, so there is definitely limited deals. So there are a lot of good deals out there, and I think the key will be largely the due diligence process, which I hope to cover later on under question 15. So I'll touch a bit more about that later on. Yeah.
Please just may as well touch on that now. But Dr. X, I mean, please, happy to expand on the answer. So.
Okay, so I will zoom into, question number 15. Okay, so if I can have the slides shown. Okay, so question 15 actually is about the tips or tricks for cross-border due diligence, and then how do we build the trust and real connection for the screen, which I think is actually this question as well. Okay, so I think firstly is it'll be great if we can involve trusted angels, and preferably a local angel, and then or perhaps someone who has done investment in that country, right, for the company in that country before, and that would be great. And then after that, rigorous due diligence, I think, is a must. For our case, it's not just for the local companies, but including the overseas company as well. So I can share with the group so we have a detailed process in place. So these are the 10 different items, 10 different broad items, and in our deal room, we actually have our appointed deal lead to liaise with the prospective company to obtain all the different documents from them. And naturally, certain documents may not exist in some country. Like in Singapore, I think we take it for granted. For example, whenever a company is registered here, they have to file this document called business profile with our authority. And in the business profile, it will include information like the names and personal particulars, including like home address of the directors, so the list of directors, including overseas directors, as well as the detailed personal information of the shareholders, including overseas shareholders. So we actually use this document to pretty much understand and validate whether when startup says that, oh, we received, let's say 1 million funding 2 years ago. So we use such document to validate whether is this the truth or there is something else. But not every country has such kind of documents. So as such, we need some sort of proxy information or additional or alternative information from them. So this is for traditional equity companies. And then we also invest in, for example, blockchain companies, including those that go through the initial coin offering process. So for that, we have a separate due diligence framework that we use. Yeah, so this is the Singapore experience. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Rex. We're almost out of time. We're just about to hit 50 minutes. So I might like to just close this out, ask everyone on the panel for their final thoughts, and particularly around, you know, we've heard of the benefits. We're all supporters and we each have engaged in cross-border investments. But what do you think can be done to improve the ASEAN funding landscape, particularly around cross-border investment? Are there any legal or fiscal obstacles that you think is hampering the ability for these investments to happen? I'll just go around my screen from who I see, but Sam, you're the one on the top of my screen. So have you thoughts there?
Yeah, sure. Of course, the first one is this kind of alliance, which is great because it connects angel groups from multiple countries. I think Ms. Fee mentioned the fact that we should have some kind of a ASEAN syndicate, which I think is a great idea too. And to a certain extent, we're also slaves to the ecosystem itself, right? So the more deals there would be, the more startups would be created in Southeast Asia, the more we'll have opportunities to invest. What I think we've seen in markets like Indonesia is eventually you need to have one big startup that really makes it big, exits at some point, and then creates some kind of a mafia or a network of alumni that will then create companies afterwards. And you've seen this happen in the US. Now you're seeing this happening with Gojek or with Grab. Alumni of those companies leaving the company and creating their own startups. And so I think for Southeast Asia as a whole, we would need those kind of exits of a successful startup in each of those markets to really create more opportunities for investment. Usually those founders are more ambitious. They've been in companies that are regional. Grab, Gojek are regional companies. And so when they build their company, they're also thinking about how can we expand across the region? And that's top of mind for them. And this gives more opportunities for angel like us that want to invest across borders.
Thanks, Sam. Madam Fee, your final thoughts?
Thank you, James. I think we have a lot of free trading agreements across the world at the moment. And not a lot of people are talking about it. We are like CPTPP and RCEP, which was signed last year and stuff like that. So I think to me, if we put our heads and our hearts together and create something common like a syndicated fund of the ASEAN, not only to invest in the ASEAN but also to other areas of the world, taking advantage of the free trading blocks that we're talking about would be great.
Thank you. Zelia, what do you think?
Yeah, I hope my line don't go choppy again.
That's good.
Yeah, so for me, I do echo what Madam Fee and Sam has said. I think one of the key things that on the ASEAN Business Angel Alliance side, as led by James here, is that we are looking at potentially raising a syndicated fund, or if there is a sidecar fund, at least in MBAN side, we are trying to sort of explore doing that as well. Having said that, one of the other key things that I would actually like to see, which will then also help in terms of increasing cross-border investments across ASEAN, is that if there is a way where we can improve in terms of the angel education side of things, because for Malaysia, if you see, one of the most active investment platforms here are actually the equity crowdfunding. I think close to 70% of the investments that's happening in the startup world are actually now in Malaysia right now is actually raised through ECF. I think this year alone, it surpassed 80% of what they raised last year in 2020. I think this year, in half a year, they raised close to about 30 million US already on ECF itself, and many of them are actually retail investors. And the problem with retail investors, they are yet sort of be a sophisticated sort of investors. Some of them don't exactly know how to do so. They may have a lot of cash lying around, which they want to do more, but they don't understand sort of the risks and the potential rewards that actually comes with that. And I think education part of it is really very important, be it in Malaysia or say in a different country like in Vietnam. Singapore is sort of like, they probably have a lot more sophisticated investors over there already. Say like in Vietnam, in Indonesia, in Philippines. I think we as the ASEAN Alliance, we should probably work on, say, coming up with the modules where we can then sort of standardize and actually improve in terms of the angel investment professionalism across the region. Yeah, so that would be my final thoughts.
Thank you. And Zelia mentioned Singapore, Dr. Rex. So for the
Yes.
final thoughts of the group.
Yes, hi. So I have one slide for that. I'm a slide guy. Okay. So yes, so I agree with Celia, and I think now that we have ABAA, we should actually use this forum to share various best local practices, because I think collectively we put together all our experiences. Definitely we can learn from each other, and most definitely especially to get to know more about what's going on in each of our countries. And then in Business Angel Network, we actually also have Bansi Academy. So in Bansi Academy is where we organize courses for those for new angels, as well as for assisting angels, especially for the more advanced courses. So I envisage that maybe in the short-term future, whichever training or whatever training program that each of our local clubs or association is organizing, may wish to also consider opening it up to angels from other countries. So this includes, I think, not just the free webinars, but even if you have paid webinars or paid workshop that would benefit the rest of the angels in the region, I think it will be a good idea to open up to the rest of us. Then number two, so we have actually learned a lot over the past 2 years in the running of our Business Angel Fund 1 and 2. And then through Fund 1 and 2, we have actually managed to invest in cross-border deals. And one of the important factor which makes our angel fund works is the formation of an investment committee. So our investment committee is made up of members of the investor who are part of the funds, and then with various subject matter expertise, so covering a few areas. As such, whenever we have a deals that is in line with their expertise, we're actually able to get deep insights from them. And then after that, whichever champions that comes along the way, they actually work quite closely with the investment committee, and then subsequently we have a vote to decide whether to invest in that company. And through today's session, actually we are in the process of forming our Angel Fund 3. That was we have been planning that for 6 months, and then after that, when I came on board the ABAA, I actually have this thought of instead of trying to start the Angel Fund 3, which is largely a repeat of Angel Fund 2, perhaps we can, when time permits, maybe in the next board meeting, we can consider the possibility of ABAA Angel Fund, whereby I envisage that how it works is that each of the members from our local countries, so firstly, they have to be a member of our association first, right? So they have to pay membership fees. And then after they become a member, then they can be considered to invest in the ABAA Angel Fund. That's just my thoughts. And then after that, we can also form these investment committee members. So from each country, maybe we can have 2 or 3 of us to sit in the investment committee to basically make decision to invest in various deals. And one possibility is that if, let's say, so today we have about, I think, 5 countries, then hopefully within the next 6 to 12 months, we can cover the remaining 5 countries. Then after that, one possibility is that with this fund, we could have sort of round robin deals, right? So today we have maybe deals, one deal in Vietnam, tomorrow in Thailand, in Malaysia, then after that, Philippines, then in Singapore, and basically just round robin. I think that would be quite interesting. So something for us to think about. Yep, that's all from me.
Thank you, Dr. X. I mean, that's very interesting proposals. Thank you all for joining us. Finally, again, my name is James Lett. I'm with the Manila Angel Investors in Philippines, but I'd like to thank each of our panelists. We have Samuel Jean Blanc, who's with XA in Singapore, but also Maine, Madam Phi Van Nguyen with the Vietnam Angel Network, Zelia Tong, who's with the Malaysian Business Angel Network, and Dr. Rex Yap, who's with Bansi in Singapore, and also finally Robert Lomnitz, who's with the Bangkok Venture Capital Club. Thank you all for joining us. Just to tie it all up, I hope our audience has found a number of key things to take away. The key things I've heard, it's obviously about that strategic value that angels can add, and that's why founders should be seeking it out, helping not just with market value and not simply money. It's about that local networks and the ease of entry, opening doors, understanding of the local regulations and local business environment so that they can smooth your entry on the way in. And also for angels, there's also huge benefits of not just seeing investments in your own country, looking into the ASEAN as your backyard, because as we all acknowledged, we're all investing into founders that we think can scale across the ASEAN. So why not take that approach from the very start and engage with local angel networks, who through them you can engage with the ASEAN-wide networks, and we can get some cross-border deals going. So finally, our time is up, but I'd like to thank you all again for joining us, and thanks again to the panel. And I will see you all. Enjoy Philippine Startup Week. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, James.
Thank you, James.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody. See you. Bye.